All right. Let's see. What are we working with? Are we live? Has it started yet? It has started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to each and every one of you. It is, of course, Wednesday, midday, literally 12 o'clock here on a Wednesday. It's the 4th of March. I need to get that out of the way because everything we're about to discuss is as things stand. So if you're watching this in 2 days from now, things have probably changed. This is a war scenario. There's a lot of stuff happening, although I must admit, the USA has not yet classified this as a war. Instead, what they've said repeatedly, and this is technically not wrong, Iran is at war with America. America has not officially declared a war. There's been no official declaration of war. So, you need to keep that in mind as it plays out. To be so, I'm happy that you call it white arrogance, right? I'm happy that you call it that. What I hope, however, is that you are actually informed about the realities on the ground. Because it's perfectly fine if you genuinely believe that what America is doing right now is just white arrogance. It's the white nations of the world thinking that they can do to the Iranians whatever they want, and it's because of their whiteness, then okay, great. But do you actually know the history of Iran? Do you actually know the people of Iran? Do you understand what this regime has done to Iran? Did you know, for example, that prior to 1979, or really 1978, the Iranian people were the most free people in the entirety of the Middle East? Did you know that women were allowed to hold office, that women went to university? They had some of the best universities in the world. Did you know that? Did you know that women were equal to men in every single regard? Did you know that people there wore jeans and women wore skirts, and they were listening to music and going to nightclubs and drinking like young people do and building families and all the rest of it? Did you know that? And did you also at the same time know that once this Ayatollah and his Muslims took over, they used the communists in order to gain power? As soon as they had power, they killed the communists. Roughly 20,000 communists were either locked up or killed by Khomeini, the original Ayatollah. And when he died, of course, he was replaced by Ali Khamenei, the new Ayatollah. Did you know, for example, and I'm just going to throw out a couple of things here for you. Do you know what 12er Shia is, or 12er Shiite? 12er Shiite is a form or a sect within Shia Islam. Now, 12er Shiite holds very clearly that the prophet, I can't remember his name now, but he is Mahdi, something al-Mahdi. Bashir al-Mahdi, I think is his full title, although I could be wrong on this. I know his surname is Mahdi. He is the prophet that they're waiting for. He was the 12th prophet after Muhammad, and he disappeared. Historically speaking, they never found his body. They don't know what happened to him. And according to the 12er Shia, he is still out there. He's still fighting and fighting on behalf of Muslims. And what needs to happen is all of these imams and the ayatollahs need to keep the seat warm, because he's going to return. And when he returns, he's going to effectively cleanse the entirety of the world. But in order for him to return, all Jews must be killed. So the Muslims must kill or subdue all Jewish people in the world. And once that happens, the Mahdi will return. And when the Mahdi returns, he will actually grant Muslims special powers. And with these special powers, they will then conquer the whole earth, turning everything into Islam. And then once the entire world is Islamic, then paradise will return. So I'm just asking if you knew this, because it's important. I mean, if it is white arrogance, by all means to be so, let's believe that it is white arrogance, but let's know all of the history of these people. Let's understand where these the mullahs and the Ayatollah come from, where the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps comes from. It's interesting, however, right? It's called the IRGC, but it stands for Islamic, not for Iranian, which is what most countries have, right? If you have a military or if you have a police, they would have the name of the country. You see, but they don't. They're called the the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Why? Because their job isn't just to cause revolutions in Iran. Their job is to cause Islamic revolutions throughout the world, because everyone must be brought under the house of Islam. Just so that you know. Did you know, furthermore, that once the Khamenei, the initial Ayatollah, took power and he started killing all of the communists, he then started systematically pressuring and oppressing his own people. Slowly but surely, his own people started losing their rights. Slowly but surely, his own people started to be infringed upon, to the point where nowadays you can be killed in Iran for simply reading the wrong book. You can be killed in Iran for accepting a new religion. So, for example, if you were to become a Christian, you would be killed immediately. If you are a Christian, they do have some leeway for you. You can pay an extra tax. This is the submission tax in Islam. And once you pay that tax, they consider you to be Muslim, because Islam merely means to submit. And you have submitted to Islam, therefore you are Muslim. Congratulations, you are now, allowed to live. Of course, they don't allow you to live too long when things go really wrong. They believe that Allah is punishing them, and then they just kill a bunch of Christians until things go right, or until they've killed all of the Christians. So it's sort of a back and forth. But you need to know these things to be so. If you're going to believe that this is white arrogance, knowing your history, super important. Understanding who you're allying with, super important. I want you to understand that Khamenei, he's dead now, but the new Ayatollah, he will kill you the second there is no one else left to kill. You majority black Marxists in South Africa who believe that he is your friend, he will slaughter every last one of you if you do not accept Islam. It's as simple as that. You will scream about the revolution. You will scream about the communist takeover of the world. He will slaughter you where you stand if you do not submit to Islam. He couldn't care less about your communist revolution. Make no mistake. The ANC, and I can actually prove this to you. Let me just show you. The ANC loves to tout this. Where's our esteemed Secretary General Fikile Mbalula? Right, here is Secretary General Fikile Mbalula praising. This was Khamenei and him meeting Nelson Mandela for the first time. And of course, the ANC's reasons for why they're friends with the Iranian regime, ladies and gentlemen, it goes no deeper than the Shah, who was a very bad man. Make no mistake. The Shah became increasingly more dictatorial as he got older, and eventually the Iranian people, through violent revolution, threw off the Shah. And of course, the communists sought the help of the Muslims in order to gain power. Once the Muslims had power, all the communists are killed. But for the ANC, this doesn't matter. You have to understand something. When you are a Marxist, and I've discussed this with you guys before, the mantra in Marxism is that which advances the revolution is ethical. And so this is why the ANC can sit here and condemn America's attacks on Tehran and on Iran, but never once have they condemned the attacks of Russia on Ukraine. Ever. Once. Never. This is the same reason why the ANC can scream and yell about sovereign states and the right to self-determination for a state, but support wholeheartedly China's ambitions to retake Taiwan. You see, because when it doesn't advance the revolution, it is not ethical, and therefore the ANC can by all rights say, you evil dictators, you evil terrorists. When it advances the revolution, all bets are off. You can do pretty much whatever you want. It doesn't even matter. But so, you have to understand the sort of history of where we come from. The ANC supports Khamenei and the Ayatollahs and the Iranian regime, not the people. It's super important that you know this. The ANC does not support the people of Iran, because the people of Iran are celebrating the death of the Ayatollah. They're celebrating the war that America is currently waging against the Islamic Republic of Iran, because the people are not Islamic. In fact, if you look at the official numbers, they will tell you that 90% of Iranians are Muslim. But when you actually speak to people on the ground, they will tell you that it's far less than that. It's around 25% of the country that are actually Islamic, like Muslims. Iran, up until 1979, was actually an incredibly secular country with a huge Christian population and a relatively small Muslim population. Around 20% of the population of Iran was Muslim at the time of the violent takeover. This is why the Muslims couldn't do it alone. They needed the help of the communists, who also made up around 20% of the population. So the 40% eventually overthrew the Shah and took the power, and then the Muslims took over. But even now, the majority of Iranians aren't, in fact, Muslim. So you have to understand that. I'm going to get to your comments and stuff as soon as we're sort of done laying the groundwork. I want you to understand how this relationship between the ANC and Iran formed, because it matters that you understand where the ANC comes from. This doesn't happen in a bubble. The ANC didn't just one day wake up and say, we're just going to support the most evil regimes in the world. This is ideological. From the ANC's perspective, Iran helps to advance the revolution. And as long as that happens, from the ANC's perspective, they could not care less. Now, I'm going to show you guys something. It's a short video. It's about 11 minutes. I've spoken about Chase Hughes before. For those of you that don't know who Chase Hughes is an expert in psychological warfare, specifically psyops, or psychological operations. And he's an expert on specifically how you convert societies to one way of thinking or another. And this video here, I think, is incredibly important to everything else that we're going to be discussing here today. So you want to watch this, and then as soon as we're done watching this, we'll get into the actual news that I wanted to share with all of you. Let me just quickly see here. Those Iranians celebrating in California or New York look almost like communists to me. I'm so glad that they're free, though, in a condo in the US somewhere. Tekla, I know you and I have disagreements when it comes to this war. I realize that you're a little bit more on the side of Tucker Carlson, and I am going to talk about Tucker Carlson, Dave Smith, and the never war Americans. I will talk about that, right? So you and I can get into it as soon as we're done with the presentation. I'd be happy to get into it. As a Masakanet from the Eastern Cape. How you doing, bro? They're all far too stupid to think for themselves. Why do you see the ANC is still in government? Trust me, it takes a while to get people out of their ideological bubble, but it can be done, right? It can be done. So, okay, I'm going to play this video for you. I will be pausing and reacting. Daniel, how you doing, bro? I will be pausing. I will be reacting as we go. So if you just wanted to watch this video, it would not be a great way to watch this video, because I'm going to be adding some spice and some information that might not be there because it wasn't within the scope of the video. But okay.
We've got to talk about Iran. If you think Iran has always looked like this, I want you to pause for a second, because that belief didn't come from history. It came from just a bunch of repetition. There are people that are alive right now who grew up.
Oh, and by the way, the reason I wanted to show you guys this video is actually a lot to do with South Africa. So there's quite a large bit of truth in this video that I think we as South Africans need to understand. A lot of this stuff, I mean, obviously I'm not suggesting that this is a one-to-one comparison with South Africa, but in terms of the psychological aspects of things, in terms of how things work specifically in our country, and some of the leaders that's standing up, you're gonna see some frightening similarities here.
Up in Iran, wearing jeans, listening to Western music, going to universities, falling in love openly, and then they watch their entire country just snap into something unrecognizable. Yep. And I think the part that most people miss is that Iran didn't evolve into this. It was taken. I've done several deployments across the Middle East, and You don't survive that without learning one critical distinction that I think all the headlines just completely erase, and the difference between a people and the system that cages the people. That's a big
It is a big difference, right? It would be similar to speaking about South Africa. This is a tactic that the communists and the Marxists in South Africa like to employ when they speak about the genocide in South Africa, right? Or sometimes that people just don't understand. So when people say that there is a genocide and a persecution of white people in South Africa, the images that people see is that this majority black people or black nation is just slaughtering and murdering white people wherever they find them. That's the images that sort of, pop into people's heads. But what most people don't understand is the people of South Africa, by and large, don't hate each other, right? If you were to take 20 black people, just random people off the street, and ask each and every one of them how do they feel about white people, I would be willing to bet that 19 out of the 20 would tell you they love white people. They don't mind it, right? They're living their lives. They're going around, they do business, or they work at a place, and their kids go to school, and maybe they even have some white friends at church or some white friends that they have with. Everyone mostly get along really well. The problem, of course, is with the small minority, and when I say small, I really do mean less than 10% of the population that don't view white people that way, right? That's the part that we have to be seriously worried about, because even just that 10% of the population that hates white people still outnumber the white population of South Africa. If you go to Rwanda and you look at the genocide that took place there, do you think en masse all of the Hutus and all of the Tutsi just hated each other? No, of course not. Most of them were probably married, right, to each other, and they were friends with each other. But you had this small little group that wasn't going to stand for that, and so they went and they just slaughtered their fellow countrymen because they believed them not to be human. So it's important to understand this system is what we as white people in South Africa call a genocidal and oppressive system. It doesn't automatically mean that every single black person in South Africa is part of this oppressive system. There are some, and there's also white people that's part of that system.
Distinction I want to make right here, and this applies to all countries, but what you're seeing right now, the protests in Iran, the crackdowns, the silence when all the internet went dark the other day, that looks like chaos. That is memory colliding with fear, and I want to prove it to you. And once you understand how that collision happens, I think you're going to realize Iran is not an exception. Iran is a preview for the rest of the world. So what we're going to talk about is not a big story about religion. It's not even a story specifically about Iran. This is a story about how any modern educated civilization gets psychologically hijacked without realizing it until it's way too late.
Focus on that.
And by the end of this, you're going to see exactly where the takeover happened and the three paths that Iran is likely to take here in the next few months. In the 1960s and 70s, Iran was secular. They were educated, and they were culturally just alive. Tehran looked more like a European capital than a caricature of the Middle East. Women in Iran were doctors and lawyers and professors, and universities there were world class.
Yep.
So art and music and science were all just thriving in Iran. This was not a primitive society that was just waiting for someone to modernize them. They were already modern. And that
Napoleon, I will say on that, I've heard an interview with the Shah, the son of the Shah, really, because he's not the Shah. He hasn't been sworn in as the Shah. But he did say that he isn't running for office. He's not running to lead Iran. If he does go back, and if the people would let him, he just wants to oversee the peaceful transition of power. So he wants to oversee a democratic process whereby the people elect a new leader, and that leader becomes the government and all that, right? So at least from what he's saying, I'm not sure, right? We'll see. Grofal, how you doing, bro?
Detail matters a lot. because it destroys a very convenient myth to the media. This idea that Iran's current state, where they're at right now, is some natural expression of Iran's culture. It is not. So what happened to Iran wasn't some cultural evolution. It was complete takeover, like an interruption. So first, the Shah, this is Mohammad Reza Shah, ruled with a lot of Western countries backing him, lots of oil money, and he got increasingly authoritarian. And corruption started growing, as it always does, even here in our country. All the dissent was crushed, and people started getting very, very resentful over time. And into that little pressure, and maybe in that void, this guy steps up that most people outside Iran still don't fully understand. And this is Ayatollah Khomeini. He is a cleric who's living in exile. And he didn't sell himself to everybody as some tyrant, but he wore this costume.
Khomeini didn't even sell himself as a massive Muslim scholar. He was a Muslim, but he didn't push it as like a Muslim takeover of Iran. He didn't push this as like a theocratic thing. He was genuinely, according to all of the reports that I've seen, he was a freedom fighter. Right? He cloaked himself as this great freedom fighter that just wants to free the people of Iran from the evil dictator Shah.
Of being a liberator. So the revolution that happened in 1979 was not sold as religious extremism. It was sold as a moral cleansing. We need to morally cleanse the country. We need more justice. We need independence. It was sold as independence. And that was the first big psychological trap. And this is how civilizations get hijacked. All these revolutions that you see, it's not overthrowing power.
Napoleon, I will actually go so far as to say, because a lot of people respond with, well, it was the CIA and the Americans that actually helped people like Khomeini take power, which is absolutely true. Absolutely true. So as the Shah became ever more corrupt and ever more authoritarian, the CIA back then, however, the CIA was still allowed to pretty much act with impunity. They didn't really have to answer to the president. I think actually at that point they should have already started answering to the president, but you were still in this sort of transition period where the CIA was still doing a bunch of dark crap, just sort of on their own. And so from the CIA's perspective, this guy was becoming a serious problem and a serious threat to the stability of the Middle East. They made a mistake, right? Like, let's be super clear about that. The CIA backing this guy, obviously the Khomeini, that was a serious misstep. My argument is just always the same thing. So what? Some guy 47 years ago made a serious judgment call that was just absolutely wrong. And now the rest of us must just suffer this for all eternity. Right? Hey, America caused this problem. It's not their job to fix it. It's like, no, in fact, that's exactly whose job it is to fix it. If America broke it, they need to fix it. And they are, right? They're finally stepping in and saying, okay, enough of this. Let's get this guy out. We placed him there. We caused this. We should at least be the ones to fix it, which I think is exactly how it needs to be, right? So I sort of just, I just wanted to explain that. One of the other problems, of course, and this is something that the West has taken a very long time to learn. In the West, we have this tendency to just believe things, right? So when a leader says, we have no nuclear weapons, we tend to have this thing of just, oh, okay, well, why would he lie, right? Because our leaders lie a lot, but also a lot of the time our leaders are quite forthcoming with some information, right? If you were to ask the president of the United States, do we have nukes? He would say, sure. If you asked him, are we building more nukes? He'd probably say, yes, we are, right? Because that's just how it is. The bigger problem, this is something the West has yet to really fully grasp, when you ask a Muslim, specifically an Islamic sort of fundamentalist, a question that may hurt Islam, he will lie. So this is why you see so many of these Islamic dictators and Islamic terrorists once say exactly what they needed to say in order to gain power, and then once they have that power, they become incredibly evil very, very quickly. They were always evil. It's not as if this came out of nowhere. This is why Khomeini did not call himself an Islamic fundamentalist. He did not sell the revolution as an Islamic revolution. He spoke the language of the communists, right? He made speeches at the communist rallies, rallying the people for this communist utopia that was about to sort of, become a reality in Iran. And once he had power, that's when he said, well, never mind then. Let me just kill all of you instead, right? And let me just oppress the rest of you, because freedom of speech in Muslim countries, not a thing.
What's really being shifted is who is allowed to use violence. That's the only thing that shifts. If you look back at this, who is allowed to use violence? That's every revolution. So
Okay, so here's the thing, Tekla. Right to self-determination does not mean you have the right to build nukes when you are an evil dictator. Let's just get one thing super straight. If I'm sitting at a table next to you, right, and you're building a gun, right, and you tell me, by the way, once this gun is finished, I'm going to shoot you with it. If I then shoot you, you can't turn around and say, hey, I have a right to life too. Say, nobody. You have a right to life provided you want to be incredibly peaceful. I'm under no obligation to respect your right to self-determination if your right to self-determination is going to lead to my harm. Then I don't have to. It would be like saying, hey, I want to fight you, but you have to leave me so that I can go get a bunch of boxing lessons and I can go work out a little, get fit, so that when we fight, I can beat the living crap out of you. It's like, hell no. The second I know you want to fight me, I'm picking up a pipe and I'm beating the crap out of you. Why? Why the hell would I wait for you to first arm yourself? This would be stupidity on my end. So no, you have the right to self-determination, provided your self-determination involves no one else. The second you want to start screaming self-determination, but you want to bomb other countries? Sorry, no. You don't have that right. And then I reserve the right to bomb the living crap out of you. I can bomb you back to the Stone Age if I want to, because you're the one who threatened me. It's not America that has screamed death to Iran for 47 years. It's the Iranian regime that has yelled and screamed death to America, death to Israel for the last 47 years. We'll get to the Tucker Carlson never war guys. We'll get to it. We'll discuss it.
The Shah fell. The Islamic Republic didn't emerge overnight. It consolidated. And it was a slow, pretty methodical process. And the biggest leverage that they had was belief. They didn't use religion as a weapon. They used fear. So it was fear being used here, not religion. And it was a fear of, I'm going to be outcast. I'm going to be looked down on or judged. I'm going to be labeled immoral. I'm going to be on the wrong side of history. I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be lonely. So all these little new public rituals became compliance tests. And then speech became dangerous. Silence was a new way to just survive what was going on. So once belief becomes mandatory, truth becomes a liability. And that's the quote that you can write down for all psyops. If belief becomes mandatory, truth is a liability. So the Iran-Iraq war hardened.
Let me extract that now to South Africa. You have the ANC, the EFF, the MK, pretty much every single freedom force in South Africa screaming bloody murder about the Afrikaners that is telling the world that, by the way, South Africa has a bunch of race laws and they're oppressing the white population. They want to classify that now as treason. Remember what he said here. when belief becomes mandatory, truth becomes a liability. This is what's happening. In South Africa, the ANC desperately needs the belief that it is a redress system. They're only fighting the systems of white oppression, and it's got nothing to do with race laws. This is mandatory. The people must believe this. So the truth becomes a liability that you can simply not allow. So what are they doing? They're looking into ways to make it treason. Treason for a YouTuber to sit here and say, by the way, I don't know about you guys, but looking at a law like BEE, it's very difficult not to classify that as a race law. It is a law that purposefully excludes white people from owning certain businesses. How is that possible? How is that not a race law? But if it's treason, I wouldn't be allowed to say that. You see, because truth is a liability.
Everything like crazy. All kinds of sanctions came after this. The economy strained, surveillance got just ridiculously normalized. And informants, like people just telling on their neighbors, that just became ordinary.
Yep.
So an entire generation grew up knowing exactly what not to say, how to stay silent. And another grew up knowing nothing else. And here's a part that I think most people outside miss. This system that we're talking about in Iran didn't survive because all the people believed in the system. It survived because people learned how to live inside it, and they just treated it like it was a normal way, and suffering became just this thing that we go through in life. And that works until it doesn't, and you can see this in every country. So what happens is authoritarian systems don't collapse when people rebel against them. They collapse when their version of a story stops working on the people. So look.
This is something that I believe will eventually happen in South Africa. Just keep in mind, this is very much a one-to-one for the ANC. The ANC has spent the last 30 years carefully constructing a myth. The myth is that the failures of this country is the result of apartheid. That's the problem. It's apartheid. That's the real issue. Every single failure that the ANC has had, every single time the economy took a dump, every single mistake and literal theft of Jacob Zuma, all of that is consistently someone else, right? It's the fault of apartheid. With Jacob Zuma, they're actually doing a new thing where they're rewriting reality. So with Jacob Zuma, if you actually listen to how they speak, Cyril Ramaphosa himself stands in front of the nation and speaks about the time when South Africa was nearly destroyed due to state capture, and how they're saving the country from the era of state capture. And I want you to think about how stupid that is. Cyril Ramaphosa was the deputy president of South Africa during the era of state capture. The ANC themselves were the ones capturing the state. But now they're pretending like they're the ones who actually have. So that event for the ANC, they've already started creating the narrative that that's a completely different period. That has nothing to do with the ANC. And you could hear it from Thabo Mbeki in December. Thabo Mbeki spoke to the ANC delegations, and Thabo Mbeki said that Zuma was in fact an apartheid spy. And Zuma was placed by the apartheid government to destroy the progress of the ANC. So you can see how the narratives are being recreated. A new reality is presented to the people with the hope that the people will simply believe it. Because the ANC understands. They fundamentally understand what Chase Hughes just explained here. A regime like the ANC, their end happens the day that the people realize, wait, what I see and what you're saying isn't the same thing. So you are not giving me the actual truth as I see it. Once that happens, game's over, right? The ANC understands this. This is why they constantly have to reinvent and reiterate the lie. But the lie has to continuously be drilled into people's minds in the hope that they don't wake up.
Look at right now. There's people in the streets. They're fighting. They're rioting. There's all kinds of violence going on. Look very closely at who is protesting today. They're not extremists. They're students. They're professionals. They're descendants of an educated class. A lot of these people grew up hearing stories of a very different Iran. And this is through their parents, through photo albums. If you look at pictures of Iran in the 1970s, the 1960s, it is going to blow your mind.
What's funny, Cano, you say that, and yet the people of Venezuela celebrated when Nicolas Maduro was taken away. It's like you don't know anything about the world literally until yesterday. Your history starts wherever the mainstream media tells you to start looking. You do know that literally 3 years ago, the people of Venezuela was eating their own cats and dogs because of Nicolas Maduro and the evil dictatorship that he ran. Like, this isn't like, I understand that it's the cool thing for the left and some areas of the right to just hate America and everything that they do. But hating America does not mean that you should love evil people. Just to point that out to you. It is perfectly okay for you to say, I don't like America, I don't like Israel, but I can also understand that someone like Khamenei is a very evil figure. I can understand that. It would be similar to, imagine we're back in World War II. I despise communism. I hate Nazism as well, but I really despise communism. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that I was a Christian, I would be wholesale okay with every single communist being put to death. Every single one of them. If you even utter a word that sounds like a communist, we can just put you to rest. Because I genuinely believe communism is that big of a problem in ordinary, proper societies. But of course, I'm not allowed to do that. I have to tolerate you. I have to accept that you also have a right to speech, and you also have a right to exist, in spite of the fact that you are literally one of the biggest threats to every functioning society. But let's imagine I'm back in the World War II days, right? I hate communism. So suddenly I go, well, Hitler is a pretty great guy because he hates communists too. I am capable of holding two thoughts in my mind at the same time. One, Stalin is a pretty evil guy. Communism kills a lot of people. But so is Nazism, and so is Hitler. So both of them are incredibly evil. I don't have to automatically support the other side just because I hate the one. I am allowed to hate both. Just in case you were wondering, I realize for your NPC brain, this is a really tough conversation to have. And I realize you even realizing that you have a choice is probably breaking a lot of your coding. But you do have a choice. You are allowed to look at America and go, I don't like America very much. But also look at the Iranian Islamic regime and go, well, they're also pretty bad and evil. I will remind you, literally less than 3 weeks ago, they killed almost 40,000 of their own people for the crime of protesting, of being unhappy with how the Islamists are running their country. Just killed them. That's the group that you're supporting. That's the group that you think is a pretty A-OK group because, hey, if they're against America, they must be good, right?
Memories that are just kind of smuggled through time, filtering their way into the kids. So these protests, these people aren't asking for something new. They're asking for something that was stolen from them. And that is a massive distinction, and it's very important because if you have a population that remembers itself, suppression becomes extremely hard. And I'm going to say that again. When a population remembers itself, suppression becomes extremely hard. So now, if you layer in the modern PSYOPs battlefield, we have internet shutdowns, narrative fragmentation, foreign news amplification. We have this information scarcity from Tehran. When communication disappears, control increases, but confusion goes through the roof. And confusion is very useful for people like this because psyops don't usually create movements. Think about this. Psyops is not designed to manufacture movements. It's made to hijack movements that are already in progress. It's a lot easier that way. So you don't need to
This is effectively what's happening in the modern left, right? The psyops wasn't starting a movement of progressivism. Progressives have always existed, right? There's always been, specifically younger people, there's always been this group that wants society to move forward, to whatever end. The capturing, the psyop, and this is where I actually believe that these guys running the psyop, they were either not smart enough or we didn't know the limits of what a psyop can actually achieve. The whole pushing of men can absolutely totally be women and women can absolutely totally be men. This idea that you should allow a 3-year-old to go on puberty blockers and all manner of operations. Some argued for operations and surgeries, but a lot argued for hormone therapy on a 3-year-old. Right? This idea that you should be able to kill children left, right, and center, no questions asked. All of these were sort of pushed by psyop, right? By psyop just means psychological operation. These were psychological operations launched upon the progressive mindset, and they were all sort of clothed in what progressives care about, which tends to be empathy. So they were clothed in this idea. There's a great book. It was written in the 1980s. It's When the Ball Ends, or When the Ball Drops, I think it's called. So the book is written by sort of like the father of the modern LGBT movement. This is a gay guy that wrote a handbook for the gay population of America on how they should conquer America. So in the book, he makes it very clear that the language must shift. The language must become love is love. Literally, that quote, love is love, comes from his book. And he actually explains why. Because it will clash with the Christian theology. Christians believe God is love. So if you say love is love, because America is a broadly Christian nation, most people understand that love is good. Right? Even if they're not super Christian, they were brought up in a Christian nation, so they understand love is good. So when you say love is love, you're going to confuse a lot of people, and they're going to go, well, that's actually kind of true. Love is love, right? So it should be fine. So you can go check it for yourself, by the way, if you don't believe me. It's in the book. Love is love. That's the message. They should push that message everywhere. Love is love. Love is love. Love is love. He then further goes on to tell the sort of gay activists, do not speak about the sex. Don't talk about the mess. Don't talk about the diseases. Don't talk about the promiscuity. Don't talk about the fact that most gay men will have multiple sexual encounters every single night. Because remember, the only reason most straight men aren't having multiple sexual encounters every single night isn't for lack of trying. If women were more willing, we would be having more sex. The problem for straight men is that women control who does or does not have sex and how often you're allowed to have that sex, right? So for men, there is a sort of natural, I might want to, but if no girl wants to, then I'm out of luck, right? There's literally nothing else I can do. I just have to accept this. Men don't have that problem. Men are pretty much always willing, and so, but they shouldn't talk about that. And you want to know why? He says it in the book. You will lose the middle-class white woman. And you need her to accept her son. So focus on marriage. Focus on love. Focus on the good things that we want them to believe. Never mind the fact that gay marriages have an atrocious success rate. People love to harp on about how the divorce rate is 50%. It's so wrong. Most marriages actually don't end in divorce. About 80% of new marriages will not end in divorce. The actual 50% divorce rate is as a result of serial divorcees, so people who get married and divorced in like a month, right? That's what brings the average down. But in terms of if you meet a woman right now, or if you meet a guy right now and you guys get married, your marriage has an 80% chance of not failing. Most marriages don't end in divorce. For gay people, it's insane. I think it's something like 1 out of 10 gay marriages actually make it past the first year, right? Because you're fundamentally trying something that is biologically you're not designed for. A man was never made to be with another man. A woman was never made to be with another woman. And so fundamentally, that other guy that you think you're in love with, he's never going to fulfill you. He's never going to be able to supply you with what you fundamentally require. Because you were not made to get that from a man. You were made to get that from a woman. And a man was not made to give that to another man. He was made to give that to a woman. So fundamentally, but don't focus on that. Focus on the good things so that we can get the woman on board. Once we have the woman, they knew that the men would follow because men want to make women happy. And so that's sort of where you end up, right?
Vent anger when it already exists. You just need to redirect it to fracture it in another direction. And that's what makes this moment right now very dangerous and so unpredictable. So Iran is under pressure from every direction at one time. They have economic collapse that they're facing. They're facing generational defiance, massive elite corruption, a lot of global scrutiny. They've got to obviously have a shitload of oil. Pressure does not guarantee change, but pressure always reveals the cracks every time. That's why I talk so much about paying attention to pressure. And this brings us to what actually matters right now. And this is what's going to matter to our lives here in the Western world. It's not what's happening right now that's important. Yeah. It's what's going to happen next. And I think there are 3 paths that might happen here. Path number 1 is the Iron Fist. And it's the most familiar. The regime...
It's the one that I think, if it wasn't for the fact that the American and the Israeli strikes are so super successful, the Iron Fist is the one that I would think would be the most likely. What you normally have, the regime just grips, right? And it will not let go. It gets even worse. But I don't think they're going to have leaders left by the end of this campaign to grip anything.
Survives by hardening up. More repression, more surveillance, more arrests, more of these internet blackouts. So fear replaces legitimacy completely. It's just a rule by fear and it's worse than a dictatorship. So these people are complying because of the cost of dissent. So Iran doesn't change outwardly. It becomes probably, I would say, more brittle inwardly. And this path can last years, but it guarantees that it's going to rupture again in the future. So path number 2 is a fracture from within. And this one's a little bit quieter, and it's probably more realistic than people want to admit. So this is where the system splits. The elites start negotiating survival. All these reformist people and super hardline people quietly realign with each other, and you'll start seeing controlled reform.
Maddie, let me just be super clear. I have a family member that is homosexual, right? So I have nothing against individual gays. I view homosexuality the same as I view my own sins, right? I have a huge problem with lust. I had a huge problem with pornography. It's no different to the guy that is, homosexual. He deals with the exact same sin. I was born sinful. He's born sinful. There's no difference, right? So my judgment isn't on the individual gay guy, because if I'm going to condemn him to death, I have to kill myself too, right? Because I'm just as sinful. It's more a case of I have a problem with the movement that sort of tried to hijack this and turn it, because it's one of the few sins where we as society have been trying desperately to pretend like it's not a sin at all. We don't do the same with men who sleep with other women while they're married, right? Infidelity doesn't get treated the same way. We don't do the same with people who steal, right? We don't suddenly have these movements that say, well, actually, it's super okay. Well, actually, there are some leftist cities in America that are desperately trying to make theft also not a crime. But for the most part, we all agree that's a crime. We all agree that you should not be sleeping with other women if you're married, right? You should stay in your marriage and you should be loyal to your wife or to your husband. We agree on those things. But for homosexuality, it appears to be this one sin where we want to say, no, it's perfectly fine. Right? So I have a problem with that part of homosexuality, but I don't have a problem with individual gay people because they are sinners, the same as I am. Right? We both suffer from the same affliction of corruption within our human flesh. That's just how it is.
Forms appearing, and it's just because they're super necessary. So it's an internal triage that the country kind of does on its own or with some help. But history shows this path very often emerges when insiders fear losing everything more than they fear change. Mm-hmm. So the country shifts, but slowly, probably carefully, and incompletely.
I don't believe the second one is really that likely. It might happen for a short time, but what I'm not entirely sure Chase Hughes is taking into account, and this is one of the things you have to understand about experts. All experts are only experts in their chosen field. This is why when you listen to the experts, you tend to, well, at least I tend to listen to about 500 different experts. Well, actually, that's a lot. I have about 6 experts that I listen to, because each of them focuses on a different thing. And what's always funny is when I listen to Peter Zion, for example, it's always demographics. Like, it doesn't matter what problem it is in the world, it's always demographics. But then I'll listen to Jim Rickards, for example, and it's always economics. Always economics. It's always the gold price or some shit like that. So it's sort of, I take a lot of these experts, I take all of their opinions, and then I get a picture of what's actually going on, because it's usually all of the above.
And path number 3 is the break point. This is a rare path, but I think it's very possible, but it's also the most dangerous. This is where the psychological barrier collapses. So enough people start believing in the system, including all these parts of the security apparatus, and the monopoly on violence starts to fracture. That is when regimes fall really fast. And it's not because the protesters out there are super brave and badass. It's because the enforcement, the people doing the enforcing on the protesters, stop.
Thanks, Faye. Thank you so much for the 70 Rand donation. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. An expert is an expert in where they get paid most. Thanks, Faye, you're probably not wrong.
Believing. This is the path that leads to chaos or rebirth, or maybe both. And nobody ever controls how it ends. The real takeaway here is Iran isn't just a warning about religion. It's a warning about what happens when fear completely replaces consent of people, and narrative completely eclipses and replaces legitimacy. This is about Iran losing its ability to say no quietly over time. The heaviness that I feel just talking about this, it's not just about Iran. What we're talking about here when it comes to PSYOPs, this is about what any society becomes when stories matter more than people. It's when a population forgets who they are. Somebody else is going to absolutely decide who they are. And once you see that mechanism, you're going to start seeing it everywhere, and you'll watch it play out here in the next few weeks with Iran. Hope it all goes well. See ya.
Yeah, so I wanted to show you guys this video because it speaks, I think. You have to know this, right? Turks Faye with the 10 community subs. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. You're far too kind. Very much appreciate that, sir. But I wanted to show you guys this video because I think it speaks to what you have to understand, not only from what is happening in Iran right now, but also understand the news. Understand how the news operates. Understand that when you're reading a story in the newspaper or watching CNN or watching Fox News, you are not getting the truth. You're getting the version of the truth that they want you to hear. That's all that's happening there. And for those of you that think that, oh, but, you know, I don't listen to those guys. I listen to Tucker Carlson. I listen to Dave Smith. I listen to all these free-thinking folk. They're not free thinkers. They're not. So I do want to spend just a little bit of time talking about Tucker Carlson. And then I'm going to get into the problems that the ANC is causing for us here in South Africa because it's actually quite a problem, and it's going to get very messy very quickly. But I'll talk about that. I want to quickly just talk about Tucker Carlson. And I want to start off by saying I love Tucker Carlson. I watch his show every single week. Not every single show that he does, because some of them I just don't care about. But I love Tucker Carlson. I have no problem with him. I think in a lot of ways, Tucker Carlson is a very good voice, except for one. And sadly, this is the one that a lot of people just automatically want to believe. Cherie Dreyer, not entirely sure how to say your name, but thank you so much for the donation. I truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. You're far too kind. And it is my absolute pleasure to be doing this. But okay, so I'm not going to sit here and say that Tucker Carlson has been bought and paid for by Qatar or by any of that, right? I don't think that's what it is. I think what happened to Tucker Carlson is more simplistic than you might think. Tucker Carlson started his career, or at least his super famous career, at Fox News. Shortly after Megyn Kelly left, he became the new voice of the people. And for a very long time, Tucker Carlson was a neocon. Tucker Carlson would get these talking points straight from the Republican Party, and he would just repeat them. He was all on board for a lot of wars that should never have happened. As a result of that, right, Tucker Carlson eventually woke up and he realized, wait a second, what the hell am I doing? I keep supporting these people. I keep supporting these wars, and then I realized that this is complete nonsense. And I wouldn't even go so far as to say grifter. It's not about grifting. Remember, if you're a news anchor in America, you have a bunch of editors, a bunch of showrunners, a bunch of writers, a bunch of researchers, and they're all telling you what the story is, right? You're sitting in this production meeting with a group of researchers and a group of people, and they're all telling you their version of the story. But you have to trust that this team that you have around you is actually on the same page as you. And all you really need is the government or the Republican Party to grab one of the editors or one of the researchers, and suddenly the story changes a little bit. So I'm not even going to go as far as saying it's a grifter. That's just what the job turned into. You're the mouthpiece. The writers write the story for you, and you're the personality that just sort of repeats the story. And as long as you broadly agree with the story, you're not going to question it too much. But that's exactly it. So Tucker Carlson eventually wakes up. Yeah, they're script readers. That's effectively all they are. He reads a script, right? I wish I wrote scripts sometimes, but never mind that, right? I suck at scripting. But okay, so he's a script reader, and that's all he does. He wakes up, and he realizes this is nonsense. And sadly, what is so often the case, you go from one extreme straight over to the other extreme. So Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith, they're what you can call almost like ultra isolationists. So these are the people that take MAGA and they almost dial it up to 500. So MAGA doesn't just mean make America great again. America first doesn't just mean America first. America first also means America only. This is why you will very often hear people like Dave Smith, people like Tucker Carlson, they will say things like, this isn't America's war. America should have nothing to do with Iran. America should not even, and they'll say things like, America started the whole problem in Iran. This is because of American intervention that Iran is the way that it is. America should just keep out of it, stay away from all of the problems in the world, because it's so far away, who even cares? Now, the isolationist viewpoint, and one of my brothers is actually a super isolationist as well. He believes in isolationism. He's a huge fan of Tucker Carlson and all these guys, right? Andre, thank you so much for the 70-round donation. I truly appreciate you, sir. Thank you. In the 80s, Adnan Khashoggi, a Saudi arms dealer, helped the CIA fund and facilitate selling weapons to Iran through Israel and used the proceeds to back the Nicaraguan rebels. Andre, I'm not disputing any of that. And at the start of this, I told you, right? I'm going to get to the argument that America started all of this. So it's part of this conversation. So fundamentally, right, you have these people that will say, I love your perspective. My son and I listen to you often. Sarl, thank you so much for the 140 Rand donation. I truly appreciate you, sir. Thank you. You're far too kind. And I'm grateful that you guys are finding my content helpful and hopefully insightful to some extent. I truly appreciate the support that all of you give me every single day. Thank you so much for that, guys. Where was I again? Oh, yes. Okay, so they have this worldview of full isolation. One of my brothers, is a super isolationist. He also loves Tucker Carlson, loves Dave Smith, believes in the isolationist sort of utopia. Here's the problem, right? If I live on this earth and I want to be a full-blown isolationist, I have to hope and pray that there will never be another country that wishes to do me harm. Right? I have to hope and pray about that. Because if I'm not going to interfere with other countries, I need to trust that none of the other countries will ever need to interfere with me. The problem, of course, is that that's not how humans work. There is going to be a country out there that is going to look at what you have and they're going to go, but I want that. And not I want the same, I want that. That is what I want. So it's perfectly fine to say, well, I'm an isolationist. America shouldn't interfere with the rest of the world. The problem is you have violent Islamic countries that believe that Islam must be spread by the sword and that the only way to go to paradise guaranteed is to die in holy jihad. What are you going to do with those countries? Because I guarantee you, they're not just going to sit back and allow you to exist. Your very existence is a serious problem for them. It's an affront to them because you're not a Muslim country. Therefore, they want to turn you into a Muslim country. If you just live by this idea that, well, we're America, we don't interfere with anyone, you will very quickly find that you are surrounded by people with guns pointing at you. And you were sitting there going, well, it's far away. Why would I care? Let me take an argument, Tekla, that you've made in the comment section on my last video, but also in today's live stream. And I want to make it clear, I'm not attacking you in any way, shape, or form, but I want to speak to this because you're not the only person that have said this. People have questions about the nuclear side of Iran. People say that Iran was years away from building their nukes, from completing their nukes. Nuclear war was not an imminent threat. You guys know that you've heard people say this before? So now here's my question. Why does that matter? Where in the rule books of any sort of engagement does it state that I must wait for you to build your weapons of war before I remove your weapons of war from you? We didn't do that during the Second World War. I'm sure Hitler really wanted to email, if email existed, at the time, America, and say, guys, can you guys just hold on a little bit? My nuclear weapons is about 6 months away. If you guys bomb me now, that's really unfair because I don't have nukes yet. But in 6 months, I'll have nukes and then you can nuke me. That's not how that works, right? So even if I were to grant you that the Iranians didn't have the active ability to build nukes right now, why does that matter? Why am I obligated, or why is the Americans obligated to wait for the Iranians to finish their nuclear program before they're allowed to bomb the living crap out of them? I would argue it's perhaps the smarter option that if you know, and make no mistake, people who say the Iranians didn't have nukes, they were building towards it. They have been saying it openly and plainly for all to hear. The Iranians have made no secret of the fact that they want nukes. They've said it plainly, we want nukes. They have Russian scientists working in Iran. They most likely got some enriched uranium from South Africa. We know that the South African general from the SANDF pledged closer cooperation between South Africa and Iran's academy, where these bombs are most likely researched. So Iran was busy building it. Why must I wait for them to complete it? And more specifically, when you actually listen to the rationale, something very strange happened in Iran. After the 12-day war, where Israel and America seriously damaged Iran's ballistic missile compounds or stockpiles, as well as Iran's nuclear program, what they observed was Iran rearming at a massive rate. This suggests most likely that Iran wasn't doing it alone, that you most likely had China and Russia supplying a lot of arms to Iran. Why would Iran need that many weapons, that many bombs? Well, for the same reason that Iran has always had that many bombs, because Iran's playbook has never changed. Once they have all of their bombs, they basically do the same thing. If you guys come in, we'll just shoot everyone. Use the ballistic missiles to hide behind so that you can continue your nuclear threats. Again, why does it matter? And this is a genuine question that I want to ask anyone that argues America went into Iran falsely because Iran isn't close to finishing their nuclear weapons. Why does it matter how close or how not close Iran is to finishing the nuclear weapon? Is it not enough that Iran wants to build a nuke? Because I would argue that is enough. Right? I don't have to wait for you to finish the weapon or be close enough that you can almost fire the weapon for me to just say, well, actually, no, I don't think this is a great idea. And I don't know of a single person that is sober-minded and actually educated that thinks Iran having a nuclear weapon is a good idea. One side of the ancient blood conflict? I'm not talking about one side of any conflict. I'm not talking about one side of any conflict. Israel has nukes. Israel has never used their nukes on Iran. Iran, on the other hand, has made it abundantly clear. Once they have the nukes, they will nuke Israel. So I don't even care if you want to make the argument, well, Israel is just as evil as Iran. Not just as evil, but I could even accept that Israel is an evil regime. Maybe they are. I couldn't care less. I know the Iranians are incredibly evil. How do I know that? Because they tell me. It is the Iranian regime's official position that Israel should be wiped off the map. That's their official position. I don't need to know anything else. At that point, it's like, well, maybe we don't give that guy a nuke. This would be like you walking up to that weird kid in school that keeps killing all of the animals and, torturing the pets of the neighborhood, and you handing him a machine gun. Like, this would be incredibly stupid. Why would you do that? No one in their right minds would say that that's a great idea. Iran should never have nukes. It's as simple as that. I don't care what Israel is or is not doing. I don't give a crap about the arguments that you want to make around Gaza or around Hamas or any of that nonsense. I care about what is Iran. Once we've dealt with Iran, maybe we can deal with Israel, right? Maybe we can start official reports and official things into Israel. Sure, let's do that. But what I care about now is that Iran is evil and that Iran should not be allowed to have nukes. End of discussion. And I shouldn't even say Iran. I should say the Islamic regime of Iran, because the Iranian people actually know quite a few Iranians, and they're amazing people. Sikh Papi, how are you doing, sir? Israel is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, while everyone has to be. Andre, the only reason Israel isn't an official signatory is because Israel has, for their entire existence, denied the fact that they have them. Right? People know that they have them, but they deny that they have them. And it's sort of like, what are you going to do? Right? But fundamentally, I don't even think that the non-proliferation treaty means anything. We're right back to talking about international law, and international law is a joke. Let's just be very clear about this. This whole idea that the world has that there is a law internationally is nonsense. There's no laws internationally. There is only what you can and you cannot do. It's as simple as that. This guy, believe me, bro, I'm an expert, and your opinion doesn't count. Okay, but Sparks Rugby, an expert on what? What exactly are you an expert on? But okay, so now let's talk about, with all of the preamble out of the way, but we're going to criticize Iran. I'm no Iran fan, just saying we might be balanced. Andre, balanced in what? So in other words, every single time I want to lobby a complaint about Iran, I must also equally complain about Israel? That's not what balanced means. Balanced means that I hold all countries to the exact same standard. That's balanced. Balanced is not that if I want to criticize one, I must also criticize all of the others at the same time in order to remain balanced. I look at every single country and I judge them on the exact same principles. I am a firm believer in realpolitik, so I believe in rational ideas, rational politics. I don't believe in ideological politics. I don't believe that you should be doing stuff just because ideologically we are compelled to do that. It's one of the reasons I don't have much time for Islamic regimes, because Islam is a notoriously irrational religion. And the adherents of Islam make incredibly bad decisions for their own people on a constant basis. I would put Islam pretty much in the same camp as communists. Look at the ANC. They're consistently making the worst possible decisions, but it works for the communist movement, and so they'll just stick with it. And we're going to be talking about that in a second. But I am balanced, Andre. I am absolutely balanced. What I refuse to be is play a tit-for-tat game. I don't see the point in the tit-for-tat. I will criticize Israel when Israel does something that I genuinely believe deserves criticism, right? And Jock, with the 700 Rand donation, you're an absolute legend and a champion. Thank you so much, Jock. Really appreciate you, sir. Vote for Bethlehem as Quaila Town of the Year. I'm not even so sure what the hell to make of that, but hey, thanks for the donation, Jock. Really appreciate that. The problem with Iran is that their government is insane, not rational. Well, yes, that is a serious problem. But okay, so let's focus on South Africa. So I want to share this with you guys. Shortly after Israel and the USA started bombing Iran, Russia and China. Now, I want to put this into perspective so that you guys understand what we're talking about here. When America grabbed Nicolas Maduro, all of the freedom fighters in South Africa said, this is it. China and Russia will not let that stand. Under zero circumstances will China and Russia stand aside while America interferes with one of its closest allies. China and Russia did nothing. Nothing. They issued sort of weak condemnations. Said, how dare you? And that was the end of it. Nicolas Maduro is still rotting in a prison in New York. So nothing happened. Of course, South Africa went all in on America. All the hell in. South Africa called for emergency UN meetings. South Africa wanted an official resolution from the United Nations against America, condemning America and its actions. Luckily, America has veto powers, and that's the only reason that didn't actually work. But South Africa went all in. The rest of the world, the two biggest nations to actually benefit from Venezuela, said nothing. They didn't really even join a lot of this nonsense. They just sort of made a little bit of noise. Now, after Iran is being bombed to hell. Now, I want to make it clear. If Venezuela was an important country for China and for Russia, Iran is exponentially more important. You see, Iran, being allied with both Russia and China, has granted Russia an avenue for their own exports, because Russia is finding it harder and harder to actually export anything in this world. But Russia has given them that free pass, or Iran has given them that free pass. So one would expect that Russia would actually maybe come to their defense, or at least share some weapons with them. The same goes for China. What did both of them do? No. Anyway, just moved on with their lives. Couldn't care less. India? The Indian Prime Minister was just in Israel, literally tweeting out what a good friend BB is, Benjamin Netanyahu, and how incredibly proud he is of the work that India and Israel is doing. Him and Trump are actually increasing cooperation between India and America. So India has said nothing about these attacks. Nothing. They also just sort of, this happens. What can you do? Are you guys starting to pick up on a trend here? Are you starting to see where we're going with all of this? So let me explain to you where we are now and the severe miscalculation of the ANC. Russia has no ability to respond to America, and Putin knows it. Putin understands that his only final play against President Trump and against America is his nukes. Outside of that, there's literally nothing else that he can do. Right? He can't go toe to toe with the American army. The American army is far too well equipped and far too strong. So that's not going to work. If he were to try and commit boots on the ground to the offensive in Iran, the Ukrainians and the Europeans would simply push them back, and suddenly he would lose all of Ukraine. So Putin is never going to respond to any actions that the Americans take. And here's the lesson that South Africa should have learned by now. This message goes out to all of the freedom fighters of South Africa. I want you to hear this. China has never and will never involve itself in foreign conflicts that has nothing to do with them. I want to be super clear about this. China does not come to the aid of their friends. China does not come to the aid of neutral partners. China only ever looks after China. That's it. That is the entire Chinese mantra and model. They couldn't care less what's happening in the rest of the world. They only care about their little corner of the world, and the rest of the world can just go to hell. It doesn't matter. The other problem for China is that they are increasingly under severe threat in their own region, with South Korea and Japan sitting literally on the border, just waiting. So if China were to commit navy to Iran, to the Gulf states, they would basically be cut off from the mainland, right? Because South Korea and Japan would just move in and blockade the entire sort of area. So that's something that China physically cannot respond. Not to mention China's economic problems that are increasingly getting worse and worse. China is under increasingly more pressure. And you should know that China doesn't have the ability to respond, because if Iran goes the way of the dodo bird, as we probably expect it will, China will lose out on a significant amount of oil. Now, I mention all of this because I want you guys to quickly give me an answer. In a world of rationality, who do you think is more important to Russia and China? South Africa or Iran? Who do you think geopolitically is more important to Russia and China? South Africa or Iran? Iran, right? You all agree that it's Iran. Sparks Rugby. I'm so glad that you said that. Iran, guys. May I just repeat what Sparks Rugby just said? He just said Iran is basically winning the war. I mean, there's cope, and then there's just being beyond stupid. Like that, there's just being so daft and so stupid that there's literally no point in even arguing about this anymore. So we're just gonna quietly move on. You all agree, right? That Iran is far more important. Okay, so let me give you guys quickly a bit of a breakdown here. Just a quick last decade or so of the ANC and their consistent insolence towards the United States of America. And I want to make this super clear. The job of a government is to keep their people's interests at the forefront. The ANC is supposed to act in the best interest of South Africans, not in the interests of the ANC's ideological beliefs. Now, just pay attention to this. In December of 2022, we had the cargo ship, the Lady R, that docked at Simonstown in South Africa. You guys remember the Americans were not too happy about that, right? Then in February 2023, we had the joint trilateral naval exercises called Mosey 2, where Russia and China was again visiting. This is as Russia is invading Ukraine, as Russia is causing war with Ukraine. South Africa is hosting naval exercises with China and with Russia. Shortly before this, by the way, the Americans asked South Africa if we would like to do naval exercises with them, and South Africa said, no. We are a neutral country. We don't pick sides. So we don't want to do a war exercise with you because that might give our friends, Russia and China, the wrong idea. So we don't ally and play war games with America, but we will with Russia, who is at this point actively invading another nation. During the BRICS summit of August 2023, you had the South African government refusing to arrest Vladimir Putin. International law, by the way, guys. Just let's be clear about this. International law found Putin. This is by the way, this is the ANC's favorite place. The International Court of Justice found Putin a war criminal with a warrant out for his arrest. The ANC says that they will not arrest Putin and actively spend so much time trying to figure out a loophole to get Putin to South Africa for the BRICS summit. But of course, eventually Putin is the one that says, I will not come, just to take the pressure off of South Africa. You have, again, in early 2026, you have South Africa doing joint naval exercises with the BRICS plus nations in the Will for Peace thing where Iran came, right? In February 2026, you had President Ramaphosa personally thanking Putin for assisting South African citizens to be able to return from Russia after fighting in Russia, by the way. And of course, we're now told that this was just completely, this was a mistake, that they weren't supposed to be there. From about 2015 to about 2025, you've had South Africa continuously deepening its ties with Iran. Continuously. You've had ministers who visited Tehran multiple times. You have the defense chief. You guys remember last year we made a video about this, 2024, 2025, where you had the South African, the highest chief in the SANDF, in the South African Defense Force, who went to Iran and effectively pledged alliance. Do you guys remember that? Where suddenly South Africa is in an alliance with Iran. It's like, wait, what? Of course, Ramaphosa and them said, no. That's not our position. That was that guy's position. He wasn't fired, by the way, for those of you who wondered, even though he defied the president and actually completely overstepped his own office. He wasn't fired, but that's not what the president wanted to hear, and so it doesn't even matter. My point here, and I can go, the list just continues, by the way. We're about to head back to like 2015. My point here is that time and again, I'll actually highlight the most recent ones because this is actually important. After October the 7th, Hamas, the Palestinian people, invaded Israel, killed over 1,200 Israelis. And then Israel responds. Here's the thing, the key details that you guys have to know about all of this. The South African government doesn't come out in condemnation of what Hamas and Palestine has done until 3 days later. 3 days after the attack. What is the message from Ramaphosa? Israel must show restraint in their response. Not condemnation for what Hamas has done. Not condemnation for what the Palestinian people has done. No. Israel must show restraint in their response. And then, whilst the war is going on, the ANC pledges alliance with Hamas, calling Hamas one of their best friends. This is South Africa. And then Israel is taken to the International Court of Justice for the war in Gaza. A just war, in my opinion. Hamas found out. And I'm sorry, I don't care how many civilians die. It's war. It's sad when civilians die. 100%. But you cannot tell me, I should probably just say, I do care that civilians die. But if you listen to the full sort of point, it'll make sense to you. You cannot tell me that it is okay for a country to attack another country, right? And then when that country that's just been attacked clap back, now suddenly they shouldn't do it because civilians are dying. Because what you've just done is you've incentivized every single state and country in the world to build all of their military bases underneath neighborhoods. So you have the neighborhood on top and you have the military base right below it. That's the incentive now. Because I can attack you, but if you attack me and kill any of my civilians, then you're the criminal. Say, wait, that's not how it works. If you build your military bases right under civilian structures, what the hell are we supposed to do? We should kill you because you're an evil dictator, evil, Muslim extremist, but we can't get to you because you have people literally living on top of your bases. That is a very dangerous precedent. So I actually don't have a problem with the war in Gaza. But I understand that some people do, and I respect your right to have those problems. The South African government certainly shares your problems, and so the South African government took Israel to the International Criminal Court of Justice, because that's what they do, right? You will note, however, that when Iran started killing their own protesters, their own people, the South African government actively tried to block a UN Emergency Council sitting, trying to condemn Iran. When they finally did sit and tried to condemn Iran, the South African government refused to vote, abstained from the vote, saying that condemning Iran isn't conducive to dialogue. So you have the South African government actively talking out of both sides of their mouths. When Israel attacks Gaza because of what Hamas did, Israel is a criminal and Israel should be condemned in the highest to the highest order. When America snatches Maduro and brings him in to face justice in America, America is an international criminal and a terrorist, and America should be sanctioned. But when Russia invades Ukraine, suddenly dialogue. Guys, we have to have dialogue with one another. By the way, also in the United Nations sittings, South Africa refused to vote alongside America and others to condemn what Russia has done, because again, their claim was that's not conducive to dialogue. If we condemn Russia, they're not going to be willing to talk to us, and so we won't condemn them. But if Israel or America does anything, South Africa is the first. And now we've gone even further. The South African government has called an emergency meeting of the Hague Group. This is the group that is, by the way, taking Israel to the International Criminal Court. They're now convening to take America to the International Criminal Court because they now view America as a war criminal as well. That is where we are. That is where we are right now. right? Fundamentally, those are the truth. Those are the facts as they exist. You can have your own opinions on the facts, but those are the facts as they exist. The South African government has now formally involved the United States, or at least is looking to involve the United States in the International Criminal Court of Justice, and I guess label the American government as a war nation or a criminal nation or whatever the case might be. Why is the ANC doing this? Why is the ANC doing this? And I'll get to, Andre, you can tell me what your theory is in a second, because I'm happy to be challenged on my opinions, by the way, but I'll get to it. Let me just finish this. So why is the ANC doing this? Well, the ANC firmly holds true to the Karl Marx version of communist ideology. The idea of peasants of the world unite, right? This is where the ANC is. They believe that the peasants of the world must unite. Of course, the communists weren't much for peasants. They ended up killing a bunch of peasants, and ultimately it became sort of like a middle-class revolution, but never mind, the peasants of the world unite. For the ANC, the communists in Iran, the Islamists, but the Islamists are communists for the purposes of the revolution. The communists in China, the communists in Russia, the communists in even Russia isn't a communist nation anymore, but for, again, the purposes of the revolution. And for the ANC, the revolution is anti-imperialism, America. Never mind the fact that Russia was an imperialist nation as well, but anti-imperialist, ANC, America is the enemy, we should kill all Americans, right? That's the ANC's goal. And so any nation that is aligned to that, the ANC cares more about that nation than what they care about their own people. Because workers of the world unite under this communist utopia. Here is the big one. The ANC banked on BRICS. They genuinely believed that BRICS could become a world power. That BRICS could be the answer to the imperialist threat of America. Because America is a threat to the ANC. America isn't going to stand by and watch the ANC do whatever they want. That is a problem for a communist nation and a communist government that genuinely wants to do whatever it wants. So they were hoping that the BRICS nations would be so powerful that America could simply not answer it. The problem? Well, Saudi Arabia, as soon as Donald Trump came to office, went back to America. Just sort of went, oh, thanks for the invite to BRICS, guys. We won't leave officially, but, America's a lot cooler than you guys, so we're just going to be friends with them instead. India has proven itself over and over again to be an incredibly unreliable partner. Why? Because India never involves itself in anything, ever. India has this sort of, we're friends with everyone. We just don't care, right? We just don't give a crap. So from India's perspective, they won't come to the aid of South Africa. And as I have already shown you guys, just to make it clear again, Russia and China isn't coming to South Africa's defense. This is the biggest problem for the ANC. They genuinely believe that should America decide to take action against South Africa, should America decide to punish South Africa, Russia and China will help. Russia and China will be there to pick up the slack. And before you guys think, well, that will never happen, what is the worst that America can do to us? This morning, President Trump, during a briefing, well, I saw it this morning, but it happened last night. President Trump was sitting with Friedrich Mercer, the Chancellor for Germany, when President Trump announced that there will be a complete embargo against Spain, as well as full sanctions against Spain from America. The Spanish decided to take the South African route. The Spanish say to the Americans that they cannot land in their own bases, that is, in Spain. The Spanish have completely abandoned their relationship with America. And so Spain is now most likely going to be kicked out of NATO. At least they're going to be cut off from any sort of help with NATO because Spain is the only country that refuses to contribute a cent towards NATO. And Spain has now made itself abundantly clear that it is an ally of the, I would say, the axis of evil, which is the Islamic communist countries of the world. So Spain is completely cut off. Now, here's the thing. For Spain, not that bad, actually. Not that bad. Because Spain is still part of the European Union. So Spain can still trade with the rest of Europe. They can't trade directly with America, and they're probably going to suffer some consequences as a result of that, but they can still get most of their stuff from the rest of the Europeans. What does South Africa do in the event of a complete embargo and sanction by the Americans? Who do we trade with? Because if you think we're going to be trading with the rest of Africa, need I remind you, South Africa is broke, but the rest of Africa is broker. So Africa is most certainly not going to pick up the slack. Gamers Republic, China isn't going to come to the aid of South Africa. Here's the thing. If President Trump were to install sanctions and third-party sanctions, and this is very easy. President Trump says South Africa is now under sanctions, and any nation that trades with South Africa will also be under sanction. The Chinese will throw South Africa under the bus so quickly, it'll make your head spin. Because the Chinese only care about China. Xi Jinping will gladly watch South Africa burn, provided that it doesn't hurt China. So, and China can't afford not to trade with America. This is incredibly important. And literally in about a year and 4 months from now, China will no longer have the ability to hoard rare earth minerals over America. America has already signed a number of deals with Nigeria, Kenya, and a bunch of other countries in Africa to buy their rare earth minerals. America is building the largest factory in the world of rare earth magnets in Detroit City. And America will, in about a year and 4 months, produce around 40% of all rare earth magnets in the world. So America is on track to, in a year and 4 months, America will no longer be a hostage of China, which means at that point, China cannot turn around and say, well, we will trade with South Africa. They'll just throw South Africa under the bus and say, oh, well, never mind. Good luck, boys. We're going this way. Because it's only South Africa that still believes in this workers of the world unite bullshit. It's just South Africa. None of the other nations have joined South Africa in the communist utopia for Karl Marx. South Africa is the only one selling off their country because they're consistently making decisions based on an ideological sort of barometer rather than just being rationally sound, looking at the world and being honest about what you see in the world. That is our biggest threat in this country right now. By miles, our biggest threat. Already building our own infrastructure here in the US. Oh yeah, the US. The US is definitely ramping up at a massive rate. Greed and corruption to the core. I don't even know if it's greed. I think it's just ideology. I think the ANC is so captured by their own ideology that they physically can't see past it. Right? They physically can't see past the sort of more fundamental issues. So that would be more my opinion on it. That's not to say that there aren't incredibly greedy people within the ANC. Of course there is. It's more, we have to be aware of what is it that's driving this particular brand of ideological thinking. Andre, you wanted to tell me I'm wrong about something. Why is the ANC so quick to speak when US or Israel do something, but not a word when Russia or Iran do something? Oh, Jeremy, so that's fairly easy. You should look into communism. And once you understand communism, you will know that a popular mantra in communism is that which advances the revolution is ethical. So for the ANC, there is no contradiction between condemning America and Israel, but never speaking out against China, Russia, or Iran. There's no logical contradiction for them, because that which advances the revolution is ethical. When Iran or Russia or China or Venezuela does anything to hurt America, it advances the revolution. It is good by definition. How can it be evil? It is hurting America, right? So communists are very much the conclusion justifies the efforts. The means justify the end. The ends justify the means. Sorry, that's the right way to put it. Communists are very much about the means justify the end, right? Or the ends justify the means. Why am I struggling with that bloody sentence? You guys get what I'm saying, right? For communists, if the end goal is communism, killing 50,000 people in order to have communism is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's logically perfectly consistent with their worldview, because we're saving humanity, right? Humanity needs communism. So if we have to kill 50,000 in order to get to communism, we're saving humans here. We're in the business of saving people. So obviously, that which advances the revolution is ethical. You should pitch yourself as speechwriter for Trump's admin man. That was good. I have a lot of things that I disagree with President Trump on, and a lot of things that I disagree with. So I would certainly not do well in any administration of any kind. No one's speaking about the attempt to steal uranium from the stores in PTA. Wait, what? Islam is most probably writing the cancer speeches that keeps them so blind. You do know that they are going to ask for forgiveness when they are caught out and blame their history for it and go straight back to being Marxists. Lamborghini, yes, for now, but I personally don't believe that. I believe that when the time for justice arrives, the ANC will receive the same mercy that they have shown. Debbie, how are you doing? The devil does not go against its own. A house divided can't stand. Unnamed, if only that was true, but remember again, for the communist, that which advances the revolution is ethical. So if a communist has to throw you under the bus, they'll do it, right? Because communism becomes a religion, and they become religious zealots. That's just the nature of it. Video called This Iranian Woman Just Exposed the Psychological Trick Controlling the World. Iranian Woman explains everything so well, better than I could. Truth Seeker, I'll give it a listen. That is great. So we'll be able. I get it, Stefan. We are nothing more than a lapdog that's owners run away. As an American, the world's Grandful, how you doing, bro? Typing on a phone sucks. Ignore me. Still, bro, happy to see you back. Communism sees itself as a savior, which is why it is against religion. For it to keep being the savior, it needs to keep the victim narrative going. Vicious cycle. Oh, Debbie, yes. I mean, we've discussed the drama triangle, right? I think I made a video on it showing you guys the drama triangle, which is actually incredibly helpful in understanding it. But it needs to be mentioned here that the drama triangle is just one part of the communist mindset. Because you also have to understand that communism in and of itself has also been captured. So what the original pure communists wanted was pretty evil, but the new captured communism is leagues above that. Like far more evil than even the original communism. Because the original communism wasn't really about this intersectionality and all of these different sort of ideologies coming together. But a lot of ideological people started capturing the movement, and now you have this sort of this vehicle for destruction. And the whole point is to just rip society apart. There's no rebuilding. They're not building society. The idea is just to rip it apart until there's nothing left. And that, of course, will lead to an unending amount of suffering. Muscle Gamers, thank you so much for the 14 Rand donation. Truly appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Listen, Debbie, very nice to have you here, but no one there says we're going to have this in 1.5 years and that in 2 years. They just go, hey, look at those crazy Democrats. Hey, Bushveld Put, thanks for the 70 Rand donation, dude. Really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate your content and effort to cut through the fluff that we are given by mainstream media and Propaganda 24. Keep it up. Bushveld Put, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And, I mean, I will make mistakes, guys. Like, seriously. I have never said that I'm infallible. You also have to understand that I'm just one guy, right? I do all of my own research. I have to check every single thing myself. So obviously I'm going to make mistakes. As you guys have learned by now, I will also always be the first to admit my mistakes and apologize for my mistakes if and when I made them. So I want to be super clear about that. Mistakes will happen, but at the same time, I promise to never just brush over something. If I say something that is wrong and just obviously wrong, I will be the first to say, oh, guys, I was completely wrong about that. I'm so sorry. Debbie Wilson with the 5 community subs. Really appreciate it. Wow, you guys are really generous today. What's going on? I really appreciate that, Debbie. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind. But no, I truly appreciate just the support that you guys have given me. And I love these live streams because we get to go a bit deeper into things. And I understand, Zandro, how are you doing, sir? Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I understand the notion that we're not all going to agree. And I have to say, this is the one thing that I actually respect about... I was pleasantly surprised about this for South Africans. Because those of you that don't know my history, I'll just quickly go a bit over it. I started making YouTube videos about a decade ago at this point, right? 9 years. Oh, well, actually, it is a decade ago. August this year, it'll be a decade that I started making YouTube videos. 2016, August was my first ever videos. And I made videos in World of Warcraft, right? So this is my first channel. This is maybe like my 5th or my 6th channel at this point. But I started making World of Warcraft videos. And I did that for 8 years. I made World of Warcraft videos. And I did really well. Really, really well. So anyone that sort of thinks to themselves, oh, you left for politics because you make more money, let me lay this to rest right now. That's absolutely not true. So I can tell you guys right now, I make on YouTube here, I'm not allowed to give the official numbers because YouTube rules, but I can tell you I make about 7 times less per 1,000 views doing South African politics than what I made doing World of Warcraft. Just so that you guys know. This was never a money thing for me. I left a lot of money when I stopped talking about video games and I came to politics. But I'm happier now than what I was. So just want to make that clear. But I did World of Warcraft and it was great. It was a lot of fun until World of Warcraft went super woke, super left-wing. And I, stupid as I was, didn't do the whole, just be quiet, this is your job. No, I started complaining because they're going left-wing and they're going woke and I hate it. I mean, let's just say I alienated a lot of WoW players because as it turns out, a lot of WoW fans are incredibly woke. So, it is what it is. But we continue, we marched on. I still lived fairly comfortably. Did my World of Warcraft stuff. One thing that became super clear to me sort of after 2018 was even in WoW. And remember, I'm giving South Africans a compliment here. So bear with me. You're going to hear something really good about yourselves in a second. Even in a game, if you said something that people disagreed with, like, we're talking about video games, guys. I was making videos about the stories in World of Warcraft. just talking about the psychological aspect of stories and how stories are being told, the structure of the story, stuff like that, right? So nothing deep, political, or true, just stories. If I said that this cinematic means this, and this is actually what the story is, and someone disagreed with me, oh boy. Oh boy. They would unsubscribe. They would attack you relentlessly. How dare you be wrong about this video game that means nothing in the grand scheme of things? It was a mess. Like, I know whenever I made controversial videos, I would lose like 100 subscribers in a day. And then sometimes you'd gain new subscribers later on, people who now agree with you, but you'd lose instantly, just a bunch of stuff, right? Overnight. That's what happened. When I started making South African political videos, I was expecting the same. Because, I mean, now I'm in politics. Clearly, people are going to be even worse. And here's the thing that I want to say to South Africans, which I was pleasantly surprised by. The amount of people who will watch a video of mine, disagree with my video, then reply and say, oh, I don't agree. I actually think it's this, this, and this. Thank you so much for your video. Love your content. It blew me away. Like, genuinely blew me away. I was like, wait, what? You disagreed. Then you gave me your opinion on how I'm wrong. And then you say, thanks for the content. Really enjoyed. It's like South Africans just seem to be okay with people disagreeing with us. It was quite a wake-up call. So I have to give you guys huge props on that. It doesn't seem to be something that it really exists in the rest of the world a lot of the time. But it's something that's really awesome to see in our political landscape. And I think the reason for it might just be we're so used to everyone disagreeing with us, right? We live in a country where the majority has zero interest in actually making smart decisions. And so you're sort of used to it, that people are just going to disagree with you. That maybe you don't take it as hardcore. Ferorius, how you doing, sir? Dis hoe ons groot geword het, ons love not wrong, not actually wrong. But yeah, I personally, I don't know. I wonder actually what's the... Sorry, I just realized there's a weird vertical stream going on here as well that I genuinely didn't even see was happening. So if you're watching on the vertical stream, I want to apologize ahead of time. I do not lay out my streams in such a way that it makes sense vertically. Ek dink ons geniet dit actually om te stry. Mieke, as ek onthou toe ek nog gedrink het, toe ek nog uitgegaan het en actually gaan kuier het, I should probably speak English because there's a bunch of people that I just, as soon as you spoke Afrikaans, I just switched to Afrikaans naturally. But when I still went out drinking, I remember we sort of lived for the debate. Right? Like, you want to debate, you want to argue, we find it fun to do that. So it might just be in our blood, right? We like fighting, and even if it's verbally, that's fine too. We'll do that too. Is English airtime ran out? Kurtz, I wish. I would actually say in this regard, my Afrikaans airtime probably runs out a lot sooner than my English. I've been so used to speaking primarily English for the last 15 years. I spend most of my time speaking English in a day, that I think in English, I dream in English. I mean, my church is English. I read Bible in English. I pray in English. So I find myself more often struggling to find the Afrikaans words rather than like English. I'm sort of, it's natural. yeah, it just happens. But Afrikaans, I can sometimes go, wait, what's the? Oh, yeah, that's the one. It happens in English too. My brain will just sometimes clutch, and then I'll be like, okay, now I know the Afrikaans for this, but I don't know the English for it. That depends. And yes, I mix my language a lot. It would be a boring world if everyone agreed on everything. Michael, I agree with you, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people on the left do not want disagreements. They don't want debate. They want to say, and everyone else should just listen. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to be the end of it. I have to go to the vape store. I need to buy new filters. Like my filters are, this one is already about a week and a half old. And apparently you have to replace it once every week and a half. So I have to go buy some new filters. I have to go buy some new juice. And then I have to go buy some food because I have no food yet in the house. So I have to go buy some food. I have to go do some adult stuff. Debbie, it's better than smoking. That's all I'll say. And anyone that says it isn't, I promise you it is. I can feel it, right? I wake up in the mornings and I don't feel like coughing my lungs out. I don't feel like I'm dying. So this makes it reasonable, right? I'm a better person when I do this because it allows me to think. I usually just stand outside and I don't vape in the house. I just have it here because I have to go buy a new one. But yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me, for spending time with me, for everyone that supported and donated, and the memberships. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you from the bottom of my heart. As always, be good to each other, be kind to each other, and I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.